going to join. Thanks, I'll also accept. So this recording is going to be, this meetup is going to be recorded, obviously. And what's important, because we have also some technical aspects, a deep dive, and you can always go back to this recording, to our slide deck in the event, to also maybe try and build something along us today or afterwards, of course. Now, we are going to talk about conversational AI and virtual assistants and their integrations. There's a few different terminologies that we're going to clear and talk about. And yeah, so who are we? Or starting with myself, Roman Tobler from Switzerland at Routinum, and yeah, hosting some community events for UiPath community, automation community in general, located in Zurich, Switzerland, but it's been rather international also today. We have Corneliu with us today, Presales Director, EMEA at DRUID, and of course, large background in the RPA space, formerly at UiPath. Corneliu, thanks a lot for joining us and hosting this session with me. So any words from your side?
So hi everyone. In short, I think I was the 28th employee in UiPath, and I did it in two chunks. First one, RPA development mostly, and pre-sales. Then I went rogue for 1 year and did only RPA development exclusively. And then I came back as a product manager at UiPath. After that, I joined DRUID basically because from my point of view, it's the next wave of technology, from technology point of view, that makes sense to ride on and see where it goes.
That's great. Also, what we are seeing, yeah, we can start off with RPA, but there's more to it. The demand is larger to interact, having a platform and more solutions attached, and definitely something we are going to showcase today. Going forward, before we go and talk too much and be biased, maybe we want to ask you, and Esther, I think we can also, I mean, you can raise your hand if you'd like to tell us about your expectations here. You can unmute at this point, or you can also go to the Slido that we have prepared to post some of your expectations there. It's always great for us to understand where you are at, what you're interested in, what you expect that's going to happen or would like to discuss. We can either use those inputs during our presentations, or definitely afterwards also in the discussion. So if there's anyone that would like to add a few expectations here verbally, or I'll also hop on over to the Slido real quick that I have here. So yeah, if you, or do you still need the link? Maybe it's also in the chat, right? So you can scan, or could have scanned the QR code or use the link in the chat. We are interested in hearing what your expectations are. And also worth noting is that there is a section for Q&A. So also throughout the meetup, feel free to type in your questions and we will pick that up soon. Now, I will see if I can see the expectations here in the admin panel. So, I mean, you can also, ask this anonymously, which is great. We can always pick that up. So a demo with DRUID, of course, is requested. And yeah, basic usage and the trend. Great. Anything else you'd like to have covered or are expecting to see? Otherwise, we have a second question coming up for you, which also helps us better understand where you are at. And I will activate the second poll. So here we'd like to hear from you. Have you developed potentially something with conversational AI before? What's your standing, your maybe expertise currently? Have you heard of it before? Okay, so we're seeing personally that is leading, but I mean, it's multiple choice. You can click on multiple options. Okay, and I mean, I don't know about the ratio or how many people were taking. It's 4. Okay, so somebody hasn't heard of it until today. We'll see, and hopefully have something of interest for you as well to help you kickstart your journey. All right. So this will remain open, and of course the Q&A in general is open. So feel free to add to that. I will return to our presentation slide. And now that we have some of your expectations, what is on the agenda, which is also kind of what was in the event description. So we'd like to introduce you to a term, conversational AI, but then also why do we need chatbots or virtual agents, virtual assistants? We have a few words that we'd like to clear and better present to you to have a better understanding how they are working together or are different from each other. Then, of course, the DRUID and UiPath integration, so how that works. And we would like to present to you a solution, a practical example of an accounts payable process, which helps to understand the whole solution and not just something very, very simplistic. And in general, how these integrations work. So with a UiPath bot, RPA, how can this work together? And in parallel or whatever, we will go in and see that. And this was not the slide I expected or the behavior by my computer. The first question is, what is conversational AI and why do we need chatbots? So I'd like to introduce you first of all, and some definitions here is, so we have 3 different columns: chatbot, conversational AI, and virtual assistants. And these need to be, or depending on how precisely you want to be on the terminology, the chatbot usually is here to answer questions, and it can understand human language. The conversational AI is taking it further, and chatbots are a part of it. Now, additionally, there is the understanding of context of your intents or the intentions. What is this person actually looking for? And extracting entities. So an entity, so what's the domain? What's being asked here? Where should we put it and look for additional solutions? What can we provide? So that's important. Entity recognition or named entity recognition is also something that is popular in artificial intelligence. Then virtual assistance is all of this plus some more. Interacting with other systems is something that it can do. And obviously, as I think many of you know, robotic process automation, RPA, the automation part is I mean, also interacting with systems, but is it an additional layer, non-intrusive? So virtual assistants can have these conversations, can find out what the intention is of the conversation and the requirements, and then trigger some solutions, but do this back and forth and provide you with additional value. And yeah, linked to this is definitely, why do we need chatbots and so on? So we are seeing a higher demand and availability. So 24/7 access, support, assistance. Yeah, we also in the introduction that we had, we heard good morning, good afternoon, so good evening even. It doesn't really matter. We are working globally interconnected. So this is a demand, but also a stress for a company to be able to provide and keep up with these requirements. And data is growing. There's a large history of communications, emails, and so on. And we see that there's a different channel required and a streamlined solution here. We can gather more from our communications, both from virtual agents, but also what we have had in the past, and identifying patterns. What are people asking? How are we helping them successfully? What's leading or what's connected to customer success, and so on. So finding out how this is working and then implementing that better in our solutions. And also customer satisfaction, etc. I mean, quality is there. You improve by standardization. You can also improve the quality. And if it's automated, then usually, or hopefully also, there's this quality involved, and we are more efficient and reduced response time, because the agent should always be available. And additionally, we have a larger or better interfaces and an enrichment. Like if you take your email client, sure, it works, but can you provide the structure, or is it unstructured data? With virtual agents, we have various ways of, I mean, it can just be a chatbot, but we can also provide forms or special adaptive cards which are clickable, etc., making it more interactive and in general a better way of working. And of course, the solutions that are attached to the conversation to work in parallel with robots and their functionalities. And what we are also seeing is we are working in different tools, different channels, and we want to. So there are multiple channels where organizations need to be active on. And if you are able to build your flows, your conversational flows, you can deploy them to multiple channels. As here are some examples of that. What I'd like to...
Can I add a few things to that?
Sure, Corneliu.
So normally, as we've seen in the previous screen, when you start with a basic chatbot and you add NLP to it, so natural language processing, natural language understanding, you can have real conversations with people. But if you stick to just that, you'll just have basic Q&A. So you'll know how to understand questions and respond to them. If you want to go into the virtual agent section, you need to start working with the systems people are using day to day. So you can imagine that using integrations like APIs, you can talk with Salesforce or any other type of application, and therefore start doing things for the user, not just responding to questions and providing information. You can actually do things like submit a lead after a sales meeting directly in Salesforce just by talking to your agent. And if you add RPA to that, you can do even more, because obviously not all systems have APIs or methods of communication, and you can add RPA processes on top of all of these and extend the automation scope even more. So that's pretty much on the side of integrations and the interface that you can create for these systems. You always work with a lot of these systems. How about just putting a chat window on top of them and having just one interface for all of them? And regarding the conversation history, now usually after you deploy one conversation flow, let's say blocking a card for a banking institution, being able to ask details about your card and blocking cards, people start talking with that agent and ask things that it wasn't trained to do. Now you look at the conversation, you identify the things that people really want, and you know what to automate next. So you have a very good insight into the mind of the users. Instead of asking them and getting various answers, you can really see what they want directly in the conversation. Availability is pretty clear. You can track your package via the virtual assistant at 3 a.m. in the morning via WhatsApp, sitting on in your bed. So, and regarding the multi-channel, you deploy a conversation flow, but then you can use it on any channel. You can start on WhatsApp on your way to work and then continue the conversation on Teams while when you reach at the office. So you have the flexibility to do all this with, let's call it conversational AI and higher up virtual agents.
I think that's also interesting and we can touch on this later, enterprise-wide, WhatsApp, Telegram, etc. Is this something that is being used in practice? And it is, in fact, not. Or we also had some internal discussions. Or is it allowed? Should you do it? Have people use their private phones, smartphones for certain things? But it's a channel also for internal communications that can be active. Now you might say, why not use Teams? It depends. Not all stuff still. Maybe we had some discussions recently for maybe a construction company. The workers, not every one of them has or is licensed on Microsoft Teams, but yeah, they would have a private smartphone and would like to be in touch with their HR department for various things. So being connected, but we can touch on this later in the discussion, maybe also for this multi-channel experience, how this really plays out.
If you have questions, you can drop them in the Slido. And I'm also monitoring while Roman is presenting.
Great.
And if you have questions, I'll answer them on the go.
Great. But it might make sense to share it once more, the link, if anyone joined. Yeah, so this is back in the chat for sure. We are going to share also a few more links and resources shortly. I have one more slide before we jump onto definitely something that has been public and publicly announced and in the news and being used recently. And this was also one of the drivers and the trending topic here that I'd like to show to you. So there's Google Trends. I'm not sure, have you used it before? Maybe you'd like to go and try it out. What I did here, and you can also come up with your own conclusions to what you see on these charts. Now, Google Trends, how do they work? It's ranging from 0 to 100, basically the interest on how many times a term is being searched. Now, what you see here, the curve is, or picked up tremendously, is of course because of ChatGPT, and people were searching for chatbot. Now, what I did was I compared this, and I mean, if 100% is max, so the maximum interest, So it peaked in early February. Now I compared this with conversational AI. Now, interestingly, and it has been around, and we will compare it soon, because this is definitely something you also had in the back of your mind. How does it relate or work together, and so on. Conversational AI, the graph is not as extreme. And what I also highlighted here is, or the bottom of the trend line was actually last year between Christmas and New Year's, most likely because we all took, or hopefully were able to take a week off, and we're not really interested in this. So Google searches dropped, plummeted in. We can also see a slight drop here for chatbot, but then it picked up again. Maybe, yeah, something for you to also think about. What happened here, and maybe if there's other topics, it also always makes sense to take a look. This is worldwide. You can also take a look for trends in your region, for certain countries, and so on. Can give you, for whatever topic, some indications on what is happening. Then, of course, I mentioned it before, ChatGPT. And is this conversational AI? Is it and generative AI? I have a few things, and I'm not going too much into details here. We have a few sources prepared, because OpenAI was founded way back, and there's also something Elon Musk was or is involved. His vision, so empowering as many people to have access to AI. Here are a few more links. And so what is GPT? It's generative pre-trained transformer. So it's a large database, and finding, putting together and helping you with suggestions and whatever. Microsoft has been involved also in the past, multi-year deals, now acquired more and extended that partnership. How does this play out in the space where we are at, and for businesses, enterprises? Now, there are some limitations that we'd like to touch upon. So business requests, is it possible? Now, there are restrictions, because you don't want, and you have no history, or you are not allowed due to data to use it in business context with your company data. Still, you can use use anonymity, but it's getting harder to train. So data privacy, security, you might, or you would have to double check maybe internally whether you're allowed to use it, and for what context. Now, you could say, well, can we host it on-prem? It's the requirements are very high. So these are restrictions that why no one really would come up with their own on-prem solutions. And then we don't really know how they were pre-trained. Are we really seeing facts, or is it inaccurate? But still, I mean, this is a very deflationary technology move that we are seeing. And yeah, this first move, organizations also, DRUID, we prepared these slides together. Yeah, it's great to see and integrate into your solutions similar things. So maybe, Corneliu, one or two takes on your end, and what you also hear maybe when you talk to customers.
So the thing is, right now ChatGPT is very cool for Q&A, basically. as we've seen previously. It's a conversational AI. It's very good at that. But if you want to go into the enterprise environment, that's not sufficient. I mean, okay, we first of all, the information inside an enterprise is masked behind different confidentiality levels. So you automatically need to make sure you have the required permissions to access certain information. Secondly, has anybody seen the chaos in a SharePoint? I mean, can you make sure that if you train ChatGPT on the knowledge base in a SharePoint drive, you will receive the latest response every time? That's tricky to make sure, to assure. So that's another shortcoming that I see right now for ChatGPT going into enterprise. And last but not least is obviously integration with the systems. I mean, the majority of information in a business environment is in systems. It's not in documents in SharePoint. It's in SAP and Salesforce. So if I ask ChatGPT, tell me the status of the contract of this customer, it's a long road to get to that information for ChatGPT in its current form. But DRUID with RPA can do that pretty fast, for example.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks a lot. We have, I mean, I don't want to take too much time going through this slide, but also some more resources for you to peruse the landscape. What are analysts saying on the topics? And I mean, growth is, we see that, and this is probably the largest narrative right now. AI, everyone's hopping onto this wave. Expectations are high. So that's definitely what we can see. A growing market still, very much. And we touched on this before, why we need chatbots, multiple channels, also multiple languages. I think, so this is something we need to cover. I mean, English, of course, but different languages are very, very important. And this is for DRUID. I mean, so Corneliu, right now, up to 60 languages are supported. Is that right? How are you seeing the developments here?
So the thing is, you have different tools for handling languages. By default, you can just start with English. And then you can use either a machine translation at conversation time. So you develop in English, people talk in whatever language they talk, and it's doing a back and forth translation automatically to provide the responses and things like that. If you're not happy with that approach, you can just use automatic language detection and develop the flows in different languages. What I mean by developing, I mean, you do it in English and then you go to the translations menu and say, translate everything to the other languages. And then verify that translations were good. So thing is, it's pretty straightforward working with different languages. And you have to worry about building your conversation flow only once, and then letting the platform handle the languages and the channels separately. Because you just have to tick some checks. I want this language, and this language. I want it on Teams, I want it on WhatsApp and on Facebook. And then people can start immediately discussing with the agent directly on those channels and in those languages. And it's pretty much the NLP engine that does all the understanding. You don't have to worry about things too much. Provide a few training phrases, and then it will understand others based on that.
I think also great terms to potentially discuss later on, like training, how we covered that before slightly with the conversation history that is being generated, training new alternatives for the conversation flows, but we will go into that afterwards, right? So that's something we covered, multi-channel. Then last slide for this part, and then we're going to go into the integrations and the accounts payable solution and so on. Here, as an overview, also how it's developed and how more and more employees are being helped out and bridged to various systems. Now, maybe, I mean, it's also in, I mean, we see DRUID here. Corneliu, one more question maybe, as it's rather present, the megabot, what is a megabot? What can we expect from it?
Okay, so you're a very big enterprise, right? And you began with human resources. You created a bot for human resources, you know, taking vacations, submitting tickets, or pretty much anything you need to do for human resources, getting certificates, reports, and stuff like that. But then you realized that you're a financial institution. So you developed an external use case so that your customers, your external customers, can interact with you via a dedicated bot. So you have these two bots. I lost my card in the HR business means I lost my access card. I lost my card in the financial business basically means I lost my bank card. Now, what you have in terms of a megabot is pretty much something that goes on top of these and allows your employees, for example, to ask these questions and the megabot will decide if it's HR or if it's the financial section. So it's a way of scaling up your developments once you have, I don't know, 2-3 use cases that are pretty much separate. But at some point you want your users to be able to use all of them. Just add the megabot on top, which will decide on which branch to go and will understand the context of the conversation, be able to get the data necessary to fulfill your requests.
Amazing. Yeah. So kind of a dispatcher, finding out what's relevant and in what domain it goes. Great. Great. So that's kind of an introduction, and we can, I guess, before we touch on DRUID platform, UiPath integrations, are there some remarks, questions to what we've covered so far? I'll also stop sharing for a sec and hop onto the Slido to see. Or Corneliu, was there anything that you noticed, or would anyone else like to ask some questions at this point? Then I'd hand over, of course, the presentation to Corneliu, who is going to show you more on integrating DRUID with a UiPath robot in the end.
So we'll wait a few seconds for questions.
Okay, I see.
There's a
right. Let's see are you able to mute or unmute? Let's see. Akerele Guido, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Okay, hi. Well done, sir. Thank you so much for these teachings and this platform. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I have a question basically for the integration, or basically for chatbots. Of recent, I was making some research concerning it, and I saw that I was seeing that there are a little bit of limitation to, I don't know if I'm sure, but a limitation to the persons that can use it. Like there are times that I wanted to make a chatbot, like basically DRUID. So that's why I was so much happy to see that it's a DRUID and UiPath integration. So I wanted to make an integration with chatbot and yes, DRUID chatbot and UiPath. Then I saw that the email, or to access even the community, there's a particular, maybe a business email or something like that before you can access it. So I was trying to use my normal Gmail to get a link to access it, but it didn't allow it. So that was my question. That is it only for business uses, or because I tried a WhatsApp and Messenger, it was like a school project integration chatbot, so I was not able to do it. So
you couldn't create a tenant using your Gmail account, right? That's what you're saying.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I think we don't allow from that interface to create. If you just so you don't have an enterprise email or something else, right?
Yes, I don't. Yeah, it's a school project. Yes, sir.
Okay, school project. Well, I'll talk to the product team about that to see how we can handle increasing the access for community users. In the meantime, maybe you can just drop your email in the chat, and I'll create a tenant for you after the meeting so you can play around. You'll receive an email with an activation password and link and all of that.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, maybe Guido, before you post your private email, maybe you.
Oh yeah, that's all.
Or you reach out to Corneliu directly. Oh well, it's there already. Anyways, okay. So, okay, so there are limitations. I mean, yeah, do we endorse it? Maybe. I mean, there's an interest potentially or definitely on the software vendor side, but we encourage, I mean, being able to test, to build, yeah, community editions are, etc. are interesting. Then there's also what's interesting, maybe that you can take a look at, is 5-minute emails. Maybe it works with those. Yeah, so we will reach out to you. I think the chat message was removed, which is fine, and we have the email to connect with you, Guido. Okay, so
thank you so much.
Great, thanks for your comment, Corneliu. So would you like to take it away?
Now, I did a training for presentations, and it basically said to always start the joke with a joke. So since we have all the hype about ChatGPT, now I'm not sure if people around here still remember Clippy from Microsoft Office, but it was doing its best to answer your questions and help you find the topics in the help section. And we could say that it's ChatGPT is Clippy on steroids. And if I can get away with another joke about ChatGPT, this one is from Rick and Morty. I'm pretty much sure you know that Microsoft uses ChatGPT behind Bing to make it work, like pretty straightforward integration. So this is the background behind this particular joke, so to speak. Okay, so let's go back to not that. Okay. Wait a second. Okay, so we're here. Let's go full screen. Now I'm going to go through a few slides before going on to the live demo. And if we have questions at the end, we can just go through them as we go. Now, how do I make this disappear? Okay, so conversational AI and RPA. You already have RPA deployed, and you're thinking, why would I need conversational AI on top of this? Well, to put it simply, you can add a voice to your robots. And what that means is, instead of just, logs, your bot can now write to you when they're done, when they need your help for a specific complex decision, or even during execution. They can keep you up to date with things that are happening. On top of that, if you have processes already developed and scheduling them is not sufficient, you can trigger them by using, or for example, processes that are on demand. You can just trigger them via chat. Like you're in bed, you're a manager, and you're asking, show me the report with the people who haven't given their feedback this year, let's say. So it's the possibility of triggering processes directly via chat, attended, unattended. It doesn't really matter. You can do it with Conversational AI and RPA. Now, in terms of chat, everybody has WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and we're used to typing messages, to talking with people. You're used to talking on the phone with a robot, for example. Not very happy with it, but you're used to it. So why not add this input layer on top of your RPA processes? It makes things much easier for the users. It simplifies interaction with them. Everybody's going to be able to just open up their phone and see what's happening with their RPA straight from WhatsApp, for example. And since we're going into business processes, most likely you've stumbled upon cases where you have a business process that is rather long and cannot be automated end-to-end, because every once in a while there's a complex decision to be taken by people, or there's an approval, or there's something like that. Now, you can mitigate that with Action Center, you can mitigate that with emails. There are a few ways to do it, but how about you just send a message, a notification on chat, and then the user can just say, do that or that, and you continue the process after that. So in this way, instead of having broken processes that if you automate independently, you will not get a return of investment that is significant to actually start developing the automation. You could just show them that you can do the whole automation bits by bits and link it with short sections of chat between them to have continuity. And last but not least, since we did speak earlier, you have the conversation history. So once you deployed it, you'll see what people are actually asking your virtual assistant, and then you can choose to match those particular intents to new flows, new actions in the system. And you'll know exactly what you need to develop next, because you know that 100 people are asking to see a report of their sales to date, for example. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions on this particular slide?
Yeah, Corneliu, there was in fact a question in the Slido, whether you differentiate between some types of agents, for example, dialogue agents or information retrieval, task execution, data analytics, alerting. Do you differentiate between these?
Well, once you have a platform that offers sufficient tools, I don't think you need to differentiate anymore between these types of agents because they can do pretty much all. So information retrieval is a limited functionality. Actually, I think it's there are specific scopes for an agent that can do information retrieval. Might not be able to do task execution, like triggering things, but it can get information back, like ChatGPT. You can get information from its large database of information, but it cannot execute tasks for you. So honestly, we don't do differentiation between this. We're looking more at use case, like by industry or the technology that is being used, because that's much more relevant in terms of providing the solution to a specific process.
But could for example the agent be it could have multiple functionalities, and what we haven't mentioned yet is kind of the being synchronous, so keeping up a conversation and triggering multiple agents, so an information retrieval, but then also keeping up the info, the conversation to then ask for something else. So that's, or maybe that's why you don't need to differentiate, or by design you would then build by building the solution.
So for example, with RPA, the triggers are mostly asynchronous. So I'm not waiting for the response to come back, because if I'm doing an OCR with document understanding, that might take some time. So I can just ask away the next question, and when the result comes, it will come. From this point of view, I guess that if you have an integration with Salesforce and you're asking for something, you're going to expect for the result to come then. But that depends on the use case in the end. Normally for UiPath processes, I'm not going to keep the chat window blocked until you get the finish result, because sometimes that can take hours. I'm going to notify you that it started, but not going to block the input until it's done. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. In terms of basically processes that can be automated using different solutions from the UiPath suite, you can hotwire DRUID on pretty much all of those solutions and then serve different processes internally or externally. For example, we have a DRUID data service that can mirror the UiPath data service, and therefore you get information from the chat window and then post it in the UiPath data service, which can then do whatever it needs to do with them. Also, for approval flows, as mentioned before, for long-running workflows, you can add a chat in between broken processes, and using a trigger in the Action Center or just a message in the chat, for example. And at the base, you have just basic integrations with the orchestrator to trigger attended, unattended, add items to the queue and things like that. Now, in terms of external and internal use cases, internal basically means I'm an employee of the company, and I'm using a system where I am authenticated. So the chat bot will know immediately who I am because I'm already authenticated, and therefore will know the access level that I have. So for example, if I am a manager, it will know that it can show me all the leave requests in my department. But if I'm an employee, obviously I don't have access to that information. And that's one use case for internal, asking information about leave requests or taking one. External means I am a company, I'm interacting with other companies, and they are, let's say you are in manufacturing, you're producing stuff and you have suppliers. Now, some of the suppliers are pretty small companies and they don't have a system that can interact with yours with APIs. They can deploy robots and things like that. And what do? You just give them a virtual agent on one of the channels available externally, like WhatsApp, Facebook, and things like that. And you can interact with them through that. It's like pretty much giving them a whole system just by using a chat window. We will be able to see an example for that soon enough. Okay, this is a slide with a lot of stats and comparisons. I'm not sure if I need to go too much into details here. You can pretty much look over it yourselves. There are some stats here. Oh, pardon me. It seems that this is going on top of the presentation. I don't know how to make it disappear.
Okay.
Can you see the
from Zoom? No, we can see the whole slide. So for us, it's fine.
Okay.
For
so
you,
it's
it might
only
be
on
a
my
little
side.
bit of a right. That's perfect.
It works on my computer style. Okay. Okay. And I think we have just one more slide after this in terms of what we can actually do. It looks a bit chaotic, but in short, you can do the basic stuff like adding items to queue. That's the most asynchronous way of talking with UiPath, and then you can trigger attended processes, like via robot.js, or unattended by using the orchestrator API. You can create a mirror of the data service by using entities on our side and pretty much pushing the data back and forth between the two systems. You can use the Action Center to create approval flows and other things like that. For example, you can add to the chat window the API validation station, and be able to validate things from there if you want. AI Center, there are cases where we do OCR of documents. We send them to AI Center and we receive the results back. And if at some point I'm talking to a virtual agent and I'm asking something that it wasn't programmed to do, I can submit a suggestion to Automation Hub, again via integrations. And you have solutions pre-built for all of these, so you don't have to worry about things too much in terms of, oh, how do I do this? Do you have any questions regarding this so far?
I think it's fine. We're good to explore further and see something in action here. Great. But yeah, these are fundamentals, right? That we also help.
As orchestrator, you have a tenant. Inside a tenant, you can have multiple bots. As we've seen, you can have one bot for HR, you can have one bot for banking or things like that. The reason why you separate them is because they have their own natural language processing engine inside, which will basically be able to identify the context better. It's easier to train a bot on a specific enterprise section than to train one bot for everything, because you might end up getting problems if you train it for everything. So it's easier to dedicate separate bots for separate things. Now, inside that, you can have solutions. For example, for the banking, you can have the loan request solution, and you can have the live agent solution on top of that. So it's two separate solutions in the same bot. Inside the solution, you now have the flows, the integrations, and the entities required to make that solution work. And one more thing, since we're talking about solutions, you can create one from scratch, or you can just go to the solution library, and you'll find here a lot of pre-built ones, which are split by either business case, like business line of business, like financial services, customer satisfaction, insurance, or by technology. You can see e-signature or ServiceNow or Salesforce. And you can even have internal solutions like customer satisfaction live chat, which are part of the chat environment. So if you need to talk to a human at any point, you just import the live chat advanced section, and then you'll be able to transfer to a human the conversation and have all the information from previously. Any questions up to this point, or do I just jump to demonstration?
I actually do. This is Pauline. Sorry, I didn't put my hand up. I'm a user, super basic user. I'm very new to this topic, and I just find it super fascinating and want to get to know more about it. So this is why I decided to join the webinar, because I know someone who works at UiPath. So just so you know my background, which is almost zero. If you talk about solutions and the solutions you offer, does that mean that if I had a company and I wanted to introduce a chatbot, and I come to you and you say, okay, you can choose from these different solutions, does that mean you have like a standard package of programmed conversations, and that adding to that package, you would basically add specifics to my personal business, or how exactly does that work? That it sort of the user does get a response the way the user, that at least he thinks, okay, I'm speaking to someone who really offers me the solution of the specialty that I'm talking about. which is related to my company in this case?
So there are multiple ways of actually starting with chatbots and virtual assistants. The basic one is to start with a Q&A, which is pretty much just going here and uploading a template file, which is the questions and answers. The other way is pretty much going, actually, let me duplicate this tab because it's easier. So you bought the platform, you have your own tenant, you have, I don't know, whatever licensing we have behind that. But once you do that, you have access to pretty much everything in it. And if you go here to import solution, you can filter, I don't know, I want financial services. And what do we need? I want a document builder, okay? So it's creating certificates, creating different types of documents. These are the conversation flows that are within. As you can see, it comes pre-built with live chat and help desk and stuff like that. Generate documents. And once I do import solution, actually, let's not do it. Let's do it here. This is my own tenant and I can botch it up as much as I want. I'm going to do the live chat. That's pretty much the same thing. And once you import it, you're going to have, well, it's imported. And now let's refresh it.
So this helps a lot to kickstart and have a skeleton that you can fine tune, right?
Yeah. And then if you're not happy with how this is looking at the beginning, you can just go ahead and change the texts. You know, I'm not in Europe, so therefore I don't need to agree to GDPR. So I'm going to delete this step or change the text. You can have multiple queues for live agents, you know, like one is for urgent tickets, one is for less urgent tickets, and you can pretty much change the flows however you want. It's all drag and drop. It's if you work with UiPath, you're going to be pretty at ease with working with this. And well, this is a pretty simple solution. In terms of entities, it's pretty much, you know, groups of information and the information relevant to them. For email, for example, you have attachments, CC body, and all of those things necessary for that. And this is very useful when you want to send an email. You know, you have a pre-built entity exactly for that. All you have to do is do the configurations when you send an email. And in terms of emails, you can just create an email app from here. Pretty straightforward. Or you can use SMTP, and then there are dedicated flows for that. You can also use those. You'll find them in the library. So thing is, there are two ways. You can start with Q&A, or you can start with a pre-built solution. For example, human resources. There are about 200 and something flows already pre-built in there, which include, as I said, you can have reports, you can have leave requests, certificates, different types of vacations. You can choose to have somebody replace somebody. You can view your tasks. You can create, you have recruitment in it. So there are a lot of things which are pre-built. And actually, all of them are also in here. So if I go to human resources, you have all the flows described here. What you do, I mean, the conversation flow, how it goes, what you can do, all the actions, the information inside, how to configure things for the first time. There are a lot of things available straight away to simplify starting. Does that answer your question?
It certainly does. Thank you very much. Helped a lot. Yes, thank you.
Okay,
great. I have a feeling, or just objectively, it could also be a little bit overwhelming. Where do you start? It's many resources. So you have to you need an architecture to see, okay, what do I want to do? What is the purpose? What should happen? And then maybe leave out some of the flows, some of the solutions. So yeah. You have to work through all the resources, right?
Well, I think you have to go through pretty much the minimum. We're currently working also on an academy where we have different paths that you can go depending on your role. And it's also based split on levels. You know, like if I just want to know the basics, I'm going to go through 5 courses and that's it. If I want to know how to develop some stuff, I'm also going to go through the other courses. If I'm just an SME who wants to know how to manage after we deployed, there are separate courses for that. So for a developer, you start going to flows and creating them and things like that. But if you're just a user, this is pretty much your friend, the evaluation tool. Now, this is not a very good solution to look at. We'll probably see better results in there. In here, you're going to see all the conversation, the confidence for each phrase that the user said, and the conversation flow it went to. Let me see if I can. No, this is not a very good solution to look at. Maybe here. If I go to evaluation here, this should be much better. Oh my God. Last 30 days.
Great, yeah, great.
Again, this is either hit or miss, apparently. We have solutions where you have a much bigger variety of confidence thresholds, but let's see what we didn't hit. Okay, so again, not very helpful here. Let's look on a different one.
Maybe the basic concept of accuracy means was it able to identify what the user wants and or not, and you can work on this and add additional. This is the monitoring part, evaluation monitoring part, right?
For example, you can see view my purchase orders, supplier show all purchase orders, confidence and single match. I want to talk to an agent, live chat connect to agent. I want to book the invoice. I sent it, but it was not paid, invoice not paid. It's pretty much showing me all the history of conversations, things that people said, and what they were matched or not with. And let's say that I want to add these two to. Okay, never mind, because these were actually matched and I can do things with them. So I'm just going to show you with one. Once I go here, I can add it to the train set and choose a separate flow, you know. Let's say that I want to generate invoice from PO, and suddenly I can add this particular phrase to that one. If I don't have a flow existing for this use case, I have 100 people asking for a specific type of certificate, and I don't have a flow for that. I just go new flow, create it from here, and then go on and add the steps via drag and drop to create it. And you can also look at explanations of why this particular phrase went to this flow and not this one, based on the words inside. So it's not a black box as people think AI is. You know, like you don't know what's going, you know what's going in, but you have no idea what's coming out. You know pretty well what's coming out, and you can then configure things based on this. I hope I didn't divagate too much. Okay, demo. Close this. Now the accounts payable use case is rather simple. This is the view I have as a client. This is the view I have as a supplier. And let's refresh this. Hopefully it will clear my session. If not, let's reset it. No, okay, so it still knows who I am. I'm going to reset it. Okay, so as any normal use case, you have to start with a purchase order. You can create different views in here, where you can see this is basically like a small order management and invoice processing tool, but it's everything that is happening is in the background. In here, you can see all the invoices, the purchase orders. You can go on and see the details. You can modify them directly from here, or you can just go to the chat window. And it's normally you can just type anything, as you've seen in the conversation history, and it will understand. But to help people, we create some menus. This is what we call a hero card. And in terms of the process, we're going to do this. We're going to create 2 purchase orders. Then we're going to create an invoice from the system. We're going to upload one, and it's going to be processed using document understanding in UiPath. And then on our side, we're going to book the invoice. That means add it to a system. That's going to be done via an RPA. Same goes for this. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so let's create a purchase order. The suppliers are actually, the information is extracted from a financing website. So if I choose it from here, all the data will actually be available. When we're going to generate the invoice, you're going to see all the data is there, address and everything else. Okay, so Skate Smart is basically my roller skating school. So we're just going to order some skates from them. Expensive skates, that's 600 euros. It generates an invoice number, series, and okay. And let's make another one. Oh, cool. Okay, so this was too vague for it, but not vague enough to not understand it. So as you can see, it's asking me which one of the 2 flows is the right one. So I'm going to say create purchase order. And after this, it can actually learn and not make this mistake the next time. Okay. Creating lessons. Lessons are more expensive. Okay. And now I'm going to go on the supplier side. Now, after I log in, so it's recognizing me based on my email. Normally, you can ask for security codes via email to make sure that the person is the correct one. You can send via SMS or via any other channel, like two-factor authentication. For demo purposes, if I know the email, it recognizes me because it finds me in the database. Now, the menu on my side is a little more complex. As you can see, I have different sections for it. And I'm going to go to the purchase orders. I want to see the ones waiting for an invoice. And it's the 2 that were generated earlier on. So for this one, I'm going to generate the invoice. That means the system will take all the data from behind and is going to generate the invoice for me. Yep. And you can see skates, all the financial details of the company are there. The calculation of the VAT and everything is done automatically in the background. And well, you have an invoice. And you want to save it? Yes. And the last one, we're going to upload the invoice. Okay. Now, the one I'm using here is not necessarily correct to the other one. It's just something I saved earlier on. And now it's triggering an unattended process via document understanding. And this might take some time. So in the meantime, since we generated the invoices, we're going to go back to our system. And let's see, invoices to be paid. Actually, new invoices. Yeah, these are the ones. So we should be looking at, so this is, when was it created? Oh, that's a lot of things. I should probably clean up this at some point. Anyway, I'm going to go back to my chat just to make sure. Okay, and I'm going to say book invoices. Did I click on it or not? Okay, book invoices. Now, these are all the invoices that were created from that supplier. And we're going to go with this one. I can get that invoice again on my side, since it was saved on the supplier. Given that you can OCR the information on the supplier side and send it like that, I have the possibility of changing the data before actually submitting it. But once I do that, it's going to trigger a process on my computer. You can see the robot starting. I'm going to open Chrome. It can work in the background, as pretty much everybody knows, but it's easier to actually see robots work. Am I the only one who loves looking at robots work? Okay. And once that is done, okay, you see the callback. It's coming back from UiPath, telling me it's done. Let's see if this one actually. Okay, so we have also the OCR done in the meantime. Probably took about a minute or so, and it was saved in the system. We're going to be searching for this particular number, and you can see it gets the supplier code, fiscal code, invoice number, date, all the information inside. I think you know how document understanding works. I don't think I need to go into details on that. But all you have to know is this is an unattended process happening because we don't want people touching things while it's executing. And let's book the other invoice. SKSM121. This is the one, I think. Again, I can edit the values before submitting. Just going to click OK. Let's not forget to actually look at the robot working. And that's done. Once that is done, let's just pay one. This is going to be, again, a simulation. So it's going to be another attended process happening on my computer. Again, this is a page, a demo page, but you can imagine that you can use pretty much any application instead of this. So going back here, the takeaways that you need to know is, as you've seen, you can interact with robots that are pre-built. You had already the ones for booking invoices and payment of invoices. Maybe used an Excel as input. Now you can use a chat window for that. If you don't have a system, you can just use a view created in here in DRUID to look at all the data and create automations based on them. And if you have a dev role, you also have access to this section here. Otherwise, you're just going to see the things available in your particular workspace. Just like in UiPath, if you have certain things separate by tenant or by folder, you will not be able to see them if you don't have access to them. Any questions on this? I know with how much we have 15 minutes left.
There are two questions definitely that we can touch on in the discussion. So I guess we're good to continue unless there's other question. I'll forward them to you in the discussion for sure, the other questions.
Okay, so regarding, so this particular community is hosted on Azure, but there are different areas, obviously. So for example, if you're in Australia, we have a separate instance for that. So make sure you can pretty much ask separately for a tenant in your region if you're not in Europe, for example. Okay. Now, given that we don't have that much time, I actually wanted to show you how to connect your orchestrator to DRUID and start an unattended process. And I wanted to do that with you at the same time, but I think I'm going to do it myself. And if you can follow me, okay. If not, you'll have the recording to look at afterwards. Okay. So I'm going to do this on my own tenant because I can mess up things in here if I want. Now, to begin with, all you have to do is go into your particular instance of orchestrator. No, that's not my password. Come on, man. Yay. Okay. So first I have to create an external application. I already have one. So maybe I'm just going to create a new one from scratch. Let's call this for demo purposes. Okay. Now let's add scopes. In terms of application scopes, we need some access to orchestrator API. And then let's bring out the cheat sheet. Robots read. Well, that's not sorted correctly. So we need the execution read to be able to see what things are happening. We need folders read, if I remember correctly. Folders read, execution read. Jobs, read and write, because we need to start jobs ourselves. Machines read to know on what to trigger. Queues to be able to add items to queues. I think that's pretty much it. So robots read. Yeah. Okay, so I'm saving this. Add, and I'm going to keep these open for the time being. And they closed, obviously. Good. So I'm going to go into the apps section, create a new UiPath app. In terms of connection type, you can see you have different options. So for older versions, you can do your API access. Same goes for on-premise orchestrator. There's separate types of authentication. For cloud orchestrator, I'm going to use external apps. Going back in here, copy this. It's a lot of copy pasting, basically. Wrong tab. Okay. Tenant logical name, that's basically the one here. And the orchestrator one is this one here. So I have it from previously. And now I just copy the application scopes, paste them in here, click on save. And normally, if we did everything correctly, yeah. Okay, that's just save and close, click on publish. And now we should be able to get the UiPath folders. Perfect. I only have one folder, but if you have more, you should be able to get them from here. So you can see you have access to your folders on your particular tenant. Sorry, go back to orchestrator. And I can see the shared folder, for example. Save and close. I'm gonna click on publish once. Now we need a process, right? So I have a message box. It's a basic process that gets my name and displays it in a message box. And in order to put data in that one, I need an entity. I'm gonna create a new basic entity. Let's call it, well, UiPath unattended sounds good. Data space, test. So in here, I need an input. Basically, the input arguments for the process will be stored here. You can have as many as you want, obviously. And you also need an output, you know, the results from the automation. Good, we have the entity too. Make sure we save and close. And now I think we only need to do a flow. Let's create a new flow. Copy paste this here. Also gonna paste it here. This is pretty much what I expect the user to say to trigger this particular process. And the category will be test again. Remember that depending on your user role, you can have access to flows or not. And this is where you decide if somebody has access to this one. So if I'm just a user, basically somebody who's not authenticated, you will not be able to trigger this flow, for example. But for the time being, I'm just going to put both of them. And then let's go to steps. Now, as I said, first I want my name. So I'm going to drag a prompt. Copy this one also here. And the input, I actually want to put it in that particular entity that I created earlier, UiPath unattended .input. Okay. Now, if you're feeling fancy and you expect the response for this to not be just the response to the question, you can create training phrases like my name is, and then things like I don't know why it's not triggering the autocomplete. And right now, if I type this, it's going to know the name is here and it's going to extract it from the phrase. For the time being, I'm just going to save it like this. And now let's add another step of type UiPath. Now, you can see these are coming pre-built. You can add items to queue, start unattended process. You can start attended processes, get entity, and pretty much a lot of information, a lot of activities related to data service. And I want an unattended process. Drag it here. It's let's hide these for a second. Come on, man. Okay. So depending on the status, you have these conditions pre-built. You don't have to worry about them. It just works. All you have to do is set this one up. So pretty much trigger process. As you can see, it has some pre-built sections in there. And now let's actually choose which process we want. So this will be what we call an integration. Okay, save this. Also to do a publish. Make sure we have everything up to date from this point of view. And now let's choose which process we want. The connection code is going to be this one. You can see it's going into my tenant. Let me just show you that. So these are the 5 processes I have here. And it's bringing them up in here. can choose this one. What job priority? Normal, job type, unattended, execution target, allocate dynamically. That's why it needs the machine's read. And then I can load the arguments for the process, the input arguments. And in here we had the UiPath unattended dot input. Okay, saved successfully. I think that's pretty much it. We can just go to the chat window and do it. Now, where's my assistant? If I trigger message box from here, so blank, without any input arguments, it's gonna be hello, dear friend, right? But if I go here and do it from here, yeah, I need to train it first to be able to understand my typos. So just go do a train. Okay. By now it's pretty much done. Okay, so let's say George, I don't know. Ah. Okay. There's a problem here. Let's do a publish one more time just to make sure. Okay. And you can see the message box coming up in here with my name. So how much did that take? I don't know. 8 minutes. 5 in total, but 8 with explanations and step-by-step stuff. So thing is, if you have RPA already pre-built, you can just create the link like this. You can just go ahead on DRUID-AI.com and create your own tenant, link your orchestrator with it, and then have some fun. Any questions?
Okay, so no direct questions here, or we give it another minute.
Okay,
Right.
regarding the hosting, you can have a deployment on-prem, you can have a deployment full cloud, or you can have a deployment hybrid deployment. What that means is the NLP engine will stay in cloud, but your data, anything you put in the entities, data service, or things like that, will stay on your in your premise. Okay, we use Google Actions together with UiPath. Normally, UiPath bots take more than the allowed 8 seconds from Google for response. Has DRUID also this restriction? I don't know. I'll have to ask, and I'll come back with the response here. It's a pretty specific one, and I have to dig in a little bit to know.
But then again, I mean, they work, the integrations, so
yeah,
the job is triggered effectively, and the conversation is carried on, right? So
actually, let me do it from here. So this is an SQL one, but the thing is, what I want to show you is how it looks like if you worked with Postman or something. You'll pretty much recognize the structure, but let's do a REST one because it's yeah, I need to create the app first, obviously. This one, for example, I have the QR code, right? Okay, this one. So you have the connector general where you put basic information, and in terms of steps, it looks pretty much like this. You have the request. You can have different types of authentication, different types of requests. You can use field mapping, for example. If you have an entity that matches exactly the request, you can just use that. You get a response here. You can create alternate responses for other codes. If you're expecting specific error messages, you can define what to do in that case. You can even test it directly here. So if it works from here, it's going to work from the conversation too, pretty much.
Okay, so we also got in parallel the question or the answer to the question regarding the 8 seconds restriction, which was completely fine, no restrictions.
From our point of view, I don't think we have any restriction, but it's a web request. It's, as I said, you can test it out from here. If it works, it should work from the conversation too, because it's pretty much doing the same thing.
So what's maybe the background of the question? So if you are interacting with, let's say, a chatbot, for instance, you want a question or an answer in due time, which is 8 seconds. There's a rule, right? Other than that, the person loses interest and logs off, stops working with the application. So that's also where this originates.
I'm thinking you have problems synchronizing things because of that delay, right? So I don't know what's making things late. The fact that it doesn't trigger instantly the process, for example, because that could create delay. I mean, until you start the process, you start up the machine, you open the applications and all of that, you're going to have more than 8 seconds. But in this case, you're just sending a request. So it's pretty much instant. There's no firing up of any machines for that. There's no queue to follow, to monitor. It's just pretty much instant.
Okay, I think that's fine on this end.
Since we talked about the languages, here they are. There's pretty much a lot of them. That's the machine translation. You can use also Azure for this. In terms of, I think it's here, the language detection flows here. You also have a solution for that pre-built. So it's gonna be a cool conversation. It's like, I detected you're speaking in French. Do you want to switch to French? But in French. And in terms of channels, well, it's pretty much from here. Each one has its particular details and a guide to do it. But most of the time, it's just some API keys and stuff like that, and it's going to work. By default, you have the web chat, voice, text active, and you can use other channels as well. And once you deploy one of these, for example, I have Teams here. Where was Teams? If I do this, it's going to open Teams and I'll be able to do the same thing I did from the web view in Teams. I'm going to do that right now. Who knows what messages are waiting.
Also with Teams, I mean, there's perfect, I mean, everything is documented, right? So also building your Teams application, how to connect. So effectively you have in Teams an additional, as with a chat of your colleague or whatever, you have your application the channel effectively.
So there are actually 2 ways of doing Teams. You can do it just like a chat, or you can actually put it as an app,
Yeah, right.
Like a dedicated app for that. So it's going to create a separate section in Teams. Any other questions? Is there anything clear?
So any remarks in general? I just checked the Slido again. There's nothing like new on that page. So yeah, or we can also conclude or see if go into other discussions to wrap up and or close out the meetup.
Other slides.
I think that's all. Just a discussion.
Was it useful? Did it touch your expectations? Do you think you can go back to your colleagues and say, conversational AI is cool, we could actually use it?
Okay, there's a thumbs up in chat, was very helpful. Thanks so much. Definitely for the feedback here, or the first feedback.
Okay.
As well, this is Pauline again. I do it through voice instead of typing. So thank you very much for this extremely insightful presentation. To me, it made many things a lot clearer, how it works, the thought behind it, the processes, the flows that reminded me a little bit of Salesforce flows. Easier though than Salesforce flows. More is prepared, more is already in there, but I guess somewhere that was prepared as well. So depends on the perspective of how you look at it. Very insightful, and thank you very much.
Glad to help.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Also, I mean, it was we covered a lot. So a new platform, most of us. So also going through, if you have the time and like to, go through the recording, of course, or get a hold of Corneliu and I afterwards if there's any questions. Also, if you'd like to see something again, test something, integrate with something. So we're always happy to help and see how that works. Or if you want to go through those solutions again, the solution library, what is available, if that helps you in your potentially with your initiatives, then just reach out to us. And also if we have other like feedback, or if someone has done something similar to this, also happy to hear those stories, definitely.
Okay, just one thought. If I remember, I don't remember exactly who had a problem with creating a tenant. Instead of going to the partner, go to I am new with DRUID section in the free trial, and apparently it works. I mean, I tried it now with your email address, and it seems it sent you a code for authentication, a one-time password. But you can start it on your own instead. Okay, never mind. So you should be able to do it with Gmail too, but you just need to go on a separate branch of the wizard.
Okay, phenomenal. So we were able to help Guido out as well. I'm posting or giving you our digital contact card again here. So I'm just posting again Corneliu's LinkedIn and my LinkedIn profile to connect if we're not connected yet. And also if there are other questions regarding this, we see, can I get the recorded link? This will be on the events page. I'm going there right now to, it should be available somewhere, probably tomorrow. We'll see. Definitely this week. In the same link where you signed up, and you should also, I think, get a follow-up. But I'm just posting the event where you signed up again in chat. And we can also, if you're connected, we'll let you know. But here's the link also to this. So yeah, thanks a lot for your feedback and also for taking your time. Corneliu, thank you so much for all the preparations that you did as well, and for showing exactly. Yeah, so we can just notice one more message.
Yeah, I'll get.
You said something about the site.
I'll get back to him.
Perfect.
Separately.
Okay, so that's amazing. Okay, so then, yeah, if there's no more comments, then thanks so much. Have a great remainder of the evening, I suppose, or of the day. So thanks a lot, and we will see us hopefully next time for a different session or a follow-up. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.